Did you know that one black NFL player made over $30 million and still argued with himself about buying guacamole? Another one canceled cable because it felt wasteful despite having millions in spare. But these aren't isolated money horror stories. They are discipline flexes in disguise. Let's take a look at 10 such extremely rich black NFL players who live like they are poor. Number 10. Christian Wilkins, the first-round pick who treated millions like a rainy day fund. Christian Wilkins' relationship with money feels like it was formed long before the NFL ever cut him a check. When he went 13th overall in the 2019 draft, the math instantly worked in his favor. A fully guaranteed rookie deal north of $15 million, plus a fifth-year option that would later add another 10. Now most rookies would react to such a moment like they've been uncaged. Wilkins, however, reacted like someone who didn't trust the weather yet. Instead of letting his lifestyle sprint ahead of his career, he kept it jogging at the same pace it had always moved. He rented modestly, avoided locking himself into a mortgage too early, and treated his signing bonus like it belonged to a future version of himself rather than the guy standing there today. Fixed expenses stayed low on purpose, which is rare for a first-round pick who knows the money is already guaranteed. The details are what make this story stick. During off-seasons, Wilkins flew commercial budget airlines like Frontier, blending in with families and college kids instead of slipping through private terminals. Teammates noticed he wasn't chasing car culture either. No supercar rotations, no attention-grabbing purchases, just reliable transportation that did its job and stayed out of the spotlight. Even food became a strategy. He leaned heavily on team facilities and cooked when possible, not because he couldn't afford delivery, but because convenient spending quietly trains bad habits. What makes all of this believable is that it didn't start in the NFL. At Clemson, Wilkins biked to class, worked as a substitute teacher for about $80 a day, and stretched free drink packets into homemade lemonade instead of buying bottled drinks. Those weren't desperate moves. They were efficiency moves. The same mindset followed him straight into professional football. Wilkins understood something early that many players learned late. Wealth doesn't disappear because income drops. It disappears because expenses refuse to come down. By never letting those expenses rise in the first place, he built a buffer most players don't even realize they need. And while Wilkins quietly protected his money by limiting access to lifestyle creep, the next guy on this list took that idea one step further and handed the keys to someone he trusted more than himself. Number 9. Darius Hayward-Bay, the top 10 pick who put his mom on payroll. Darius Hayward-Bay entered the league at full speed. 7th overall pick in 2009, national spotlight, Raiders expectations, and a rookie contract worth roughly $23 million before he could legally rent a car without extra fees. For most players, that combination turned spending into reflex. But for Hayward-Bay, it triggered a decision that would shape his entire financial life. He handed control to his mother. Not symbolically or casually, but structurally. His mom, who was a certified accountant, managed the money while he lived on a monthly allowance. Big purchases required review. Savings and investments were discussed like quarterly reports. Even his spending patterns were tracked. In a league where autonomy often equals temptation, Hayward-Bay replaced freedom with guardrails. And that discipline showed up everywhere. During his playing years, there were no viral luxury purchases, no public jewelry collections, and absolutely no flashy real estate moves. Teammates described his lifestyle as calm, normal, almost boring. Which, for a top 10 pick in the NFL, is actually impressive. And here's a particular story that sums it up perfectly. During one NFL season, he decided to cancel cable because he realized he was barely home to watch it. That decision didn't save much money, but it revealed his modest thought process. Every recurring expense had to justify its existence. If it didn't add value, it didn't stay. Hayward-Bay also avoided the social traps that quietly drain players: nightlife expectations, expensive travel habits, and the pressure to look like money. Instead, he focused on longevity and stability, both on the field and off it. By the time he retired after 9 seasons and roughly $35 million in career earnings, he wasn't scrambling for a second act or selling a cautionary tale. He had margin, clarity, and peace. And while his system relied on family oversight, the next black player on our list built his discipline internally, turning structure into a personal operating code. Number 8. Glover Quin, the undrafted player who let math do the talking. Glover Quin's financial story begins with uncertainty. Undrafted in 2009, he entered the NFL without guarantees, without hype, and without the illusion that football owed him anything. That awareness never left him, even as his career stretched across 10 seasons and more than $40 million in earnings. Right from the get-go, Quinn lived by a simple rule: spend 30%, store 70%. Housing, transportation, daily life, everything had to fit inside that 30%. The rest moved automatically into savings and investments before he had a chance to think about it. Over time, that habit turned discipline into muscle memory. While his contracts grew, his lifestyle barely budged. At one point, Quinn lived on about $6,000 a month while earning millions annually. He drove the same Yukon Denali he bought early in his career, even after signing a $23.5 million deal with the Lions. In locker rooms, teammates joked about how cheap he was. Quinn didn't argue. He understood that every dollar not spent was a dollar that could buy freedom later. What separates Quinn from many disciplined savers is intention. He majored in business and treated football income as startup capital rather than lottery winnings. Early investments went into public markets and retirement vehicles. Later, he expanded into private ventures. By the time he retired, Quinn publicly stated that his investment portfolio had grown larger than his total NFL earnings. Instead of chasing status, Glover Quin chased optionality, the ability to walk away healthy, solvent, and unbothered. Football paid him well, but investing paid him longer. And as this list continues, you'll see how that same mindset shows up in even more unexpected places. Number 7. Frank Gore, the running back, who treated his body and his money like a long-term contract. Here's a simple reality check. Running backs aren't supposed to last. They burn bright, get hit 1,000 times, and usually fade out before the league even finishes learning their name. Now keep that in mind while I tell you Frank Gore played 16 seasons at the most punishing position in football and somehow came out the other side financially intact. That alone should make you lean in. Frank Gore entered the NFL in 2005 as a third-round pick, which meant no instant superstar treatment and no pressure to pretend he was something he wasn't. He ran like his career depended on it, because it did, and that same mentality quietly shaped how he lived off the field. While other players chased the lifestyle that comes with early fame, Gore treated football like a trade. Show up, do the work, take care of your tools, and don't blow tomorrow chasing today. And the tools part matters. Instead of funneling money into flashy purchases, Gore invested heavily in his own longevity. Training staff, conditioning routines, recovery methods, these weren't luxuries to him, they were extensions of his job. Every extra season he squeezed out of his body meant another contract, another year of earnings, another layer of financial insulation. That's not luck, that's math. What's interesting is what you didn't see. Gore was never the face of luxury brands or viral car collections. His homes, including properties in South Florida, leaned toward family practicality rather than celebrity theater. He kept deep ties to Miami, pouring time and money back into youth football programs and community projects instead of turning his life into a highlight reel of spending. And that's the real twist. Gore's version of wealth wasn't loud because it didn't need to be. His status came from durability, not display. While other running backs flamed out early and scrambled to protect what was left, Gore calmly stacked seasons, yards, and paychecks until he landed among the all-time greats. 16 years, one of the top rushers in history, a life that never spun out of control. Frank Gore didn't just outrun defenders, he outran the financial traps that catch most players at his position. And then there's the next guy, who did the exact opposite of staying quiet while still spending like he was allergic to wasting money. Number 6. Chad Ochocinco. The loudest guy in the room who spent like a minimalist, Chad Johnson has never been subtle about anything: his roots, his celebrations, his personality. So when people hear he's one of the most frugal stars of his era, it sounds like a setup for a joke. But that's exactly why his story works. The man talked like a rock star and lived like someone who hated unnecessary bills. Ochocinco entered the league in 2001 and quickly became must-watch television. Pro Bowls, touchdowns, end zone antics, the whole thing. But behind the scenes, his spending habits looked nothing like his on-field persona. Early in his career, he famously lived inside the Bengals stadium, using the locker room, cafeteria, and team facilities instead of renting an apartment. No rent, no utilities, no nonsense. Just efficiency disguised as madness. He's openly said he saved over 80% of his NFL earnings, and when you look at how he lived, that number stops sounding exaggerated. He delayed buying a home. He leased practical cars instead of buying expensive ones outright. He flew commercial, grabbed deals when possible, and treated money like a scoreboard he wanted to run up quietly. And then there's the jewelry thing, which might be the most Chad Johnson move ever. While other players wore diamonds worth more than houses, he rocked costume jewelry from mall stores, proudly telling people it cost him $20. Not because he couldn't afford better, but because he enjoyed flipping expectations on their head. It was frugality with a sense of humor. What really matters is what came after football. Johnson didn't disappear financially once the check stopped. He invested in McDonald's franchises, built steady income streams, and stayed culturally relevant without torching his savings trying to stay flashy. Yes, he splurged on meaningful moments, like an expensive engagement ring. But those were choices, not habits. Chad Johnson proves you don't have to look broke to live smart. And you don't have to live smart quietly. He turned financial discipline into part of the performance. And while Chad made frugality entertaining, the next name on this list takes things somewhere deeper, where money becomes a tool for changing other people's lives. Number 5. Warrick Dunn, the superstar who used his money to rewrite someone else's story. Warrick Dunn's approach to wealth feels different the moment you hear it, because it never revolved around himself. From the start, his mindset wasn't about how much he could keep. It was about how much he could do with what football gave him. Drafted 12th overall in 1997, Dunn carved out a long, respected career with the Buccaneers and Falcons, earning over $60 million along the way. He easily could have lived large and nobody would have blinked. Instead, he lived intentionally, keeping his personal lifestyle simple, while quietly building one of the most impactful charitable legacies in professional sports. In 2002, Dunn founded Warrick Dunn Charities, and this wasn't some vague give back initiative. His Homes for the Holidays program helped single mothers, many of whom were transitioning out of hardship, secure down payments, fully furnished homes, and long-term stability. We're talking beds, couches, groceries, utilities paid, the works. By the mid-2000s, over 150 families had received homes, and thousands of lives were permanently altered because Dunn decided money should move outward. What makes this hit harder is context. Dunn's mother, a police officer, was killed in the line of duty when he was just a teenager. He knew firsthand how fragile stability can be, and instead of hoarding security, he distributed it. On a personal level, Dunn avoided the trappings of superstar excess. No constant luxury flexing, no public obsession with cars or brands. His identity stayed tied to service, leadership, and follow-through. He didn't live modestly out of fear. He lived that way because it aligned with his mission. Warrick Dunn shows us a different definition of living like you're poor. Sometimes it doesn't mean saving every dollar. Sometimes it means refusing to let money turn you inward. And as we get into the top 4 of this list, the examples get even more surprising. Number 4. Malcolm Jenkins, the player who treated his NFL career like seed capital. Malcolm Jenkins belongs high on this list because his relationship with money didn't start out perfect. And that's exactly what makes it powerful. He didn't walk into the league pretending he had it all figured out. Instead, he noticed something most players only realize much later. Having a few $1 million in your 20s doesn't automatically equal security, especially when your job has an expiration date printed right on it. Early in his career, Jenkins did what many disciplined rookies do. He saved, avoided outrageous spending, and stayed grounded. But then came the moment of clarity. Sitting on a solid bank balance, he realized the math still didn't work long-term. Even if the money looked big now, it wouldn't last forever unless it was taught how to reproduce. That's when his mindset shifted from "don't lose it" to "build something that outlives football." Instead of chasing random investments or celebrity-branded ventures, Jenkins built structure first. He created Malcolm Incorporated, a holding company that sits above everything he touches. That might sound boring, but it's actually the flex. This is how real wealth behaves: organized, intentional, boring on the surface, lethal underneath. Through that structure came Broad Street Ventures, a $10 million venture capital fund focused on backing companies led by Black and brown founders. And this wasn't a vanity fund built for headlines. The portfolio quietly includes companies like Airbnb, Epic Games, Instacart, Udemy, Therabody, and Automatic. Jenkins wasn't buying hype. He was buying into systems people use every single day. His real estate strategy followed the same logic. One of his early purchases was a fully occupied apartment building in Ohio, acquired using a credit line instead of a traditional mortgage. That move alone tells you how his brain works. Cash flow mattered more than aesthetics. Control mattered more than appearances. What makes Jenkins resonate isn't only the success, but also the honesty. He openly admits to early mistakes, bad investments, and learning fees. Instead of hiding them, he studied them, adjusted, and rebuilt smarter. Today, his spending is experience-driven and family-focused, not status-driven. No loud luxury era. No post-career identity crisis. Just a player who turned awareness into infrastructure. And now, let's watch how this next player turned his NFL salary into an untouchable capital. Number 3. Marshawn Lynch. Beast mode on the field, accountant energy off it. Marshawn Lynch might look chaotic on the surface, but when it comes to money, he's been operating with surgeon-level precision for years. That contrast is exactly why his story works so well. The personality is loud. The spending is surprisingly restrained. And the strategy underneath it all? Way sharper than people give him credit for. Early in his career, Lynch made a decision that flipped the usual athlete script. His NFL salary wasn't spending money, it was untouchable capital. Day-to-day life? That came out of endorsements. Nike, Skittles, Pepsi, Microsoft, Progressive. Those checks paid for living, travel, and fun. But his football income sat quietly in the background, accumulating instead of evaporating. That alone puts him in rare territory. But Lynch didn't stop there. Instead of turning his fame into short-term licensing deals, he leaned into ownership. Real ownership. Stakes in the Seattle Kraken NHL franchise. Equity in Oakland Roots SC. Investments in NRG Esports and the Professional Fighters League. Even tech ventures like Portal, which sits at the intersection of entertainment and future media. These aren't random side hustles. They're long-term bets on culture, attention, and infrastructure. And yet, the lifestyle stayed oddly grounded. Stories about Lynch debating menu prices or choosing cheaper options aren't exaggerated. They're documented. Early in his career, he drove practical cars instead of exotics, not because he couldn't afford more, but because he didn't see the point. His spending logic was simple. If it doesn't improve your life meaningfully, it's just noise. His famous line, "Take care of y'all's chicken," wasn't a joke. It was financial philosophy wrapped in humor. Pay your essentials, protect your base. Don't let image expenses eat real wealth. Lynch understood something early that many players miss entirely. Personality is leverage. He turned his into equity, not consumption. While others collected cars and watches, he collected ownership stakes. The result is a portfolio that doesn't rely on football, endorsements, or relevance. Beast mode was never just an attitude. It was a financial operating system. Number 2, Alvin Kamara, the modern superstar who budgeted his way to freedom. Alvin Kamara's story hits differently because he's still active, still earning massive checks, and still openly rejecting the idea that success has to look loud. In an era where athletes are encouraged to perform wealth online, Kamara went the opposite direction and talked about it out loud. Kamara has said in multiple interviews that he tracks his spending obsessively. Not casually, obsessively. Categories, patterns, totals, everything gets reviewed. And it's not because he's anxious or afraid. It's because he wants control. He wants to know exactly where his money is going and whether it's actually improving his life. Each new contract didn't unlock a new lifestyle tier. Instead, it increased the amount flowing into savings, investments, and long-term planning. The baseline stayed steady. The future expanded. What makes Kamara especially compelling is his self-awareness. He's openly discussed resisting peer pressure, the subtle cues that tell you to spend more just because everyone around you is spending more. He knows those signals. He just doesn't obey them. That level of consciousness is rare, especially among modern stars surrounded by constant consumption culture. Scroll through his public image, and you won't see heavy luxury branding or excessive flexing. He enjoys comfort, but flash has never been the goal. In interviews, he's laughed about being cheap, but the tone isn't self-deprecating. It's confident. He knows discipline buys peace of mind, and because he talks about it openly, fans listen. Kamara demystifies athlete finances without preaching. No lectures, no fake humility, just honesty about what actually works. He represents a new kind of NFL wealth story, one where discipline isn't framed as sacrifice, but as freedom. And that brings us to number 1 sport, where money stops being the point altogether. Number 1, Larry Fitzgerald, the quiet final boss of NFL wealth. All right, if this list were a video game, Larry Fitzgerald would be the final level you didn't even realize you were walking into. Larry Fitzgerald made an unbelievable amount of money in the NFL, over $180 million in salary and bonuses alone across 17 seasons with the Arizona Cardinals. Yet if you passed him on the street, you'd never clock him as one of the highest-earning wide receivers in league history. His life has always felt measured, like someone who understood early that money works best when it's quiet and busy in the background. Drafted 3rd overall in 2004, Fitzgerald entered the league as a superstar in waiting and somehow exceeded even those expectations. 11 Pro Bowls. Second all-time in receptions and receiving yards when he retired. Walter Payton Man of the Year. NFL 100 all-time team. The resume reads like a checklist of greatness. And through all of it, his contracts kept climbing in a steady, almost boring way. The kind of boring accountants love. His massive 2011 extension, 8 years for $120 million, locked in security most players only dream about. Here's where it gets interesting. Fitzgerald treated endorsements the same way he treated roots: clean, intentional, no wasted movement. Nike, AT&T Visa, Bose, Lenovo. These weren't loud fashion partnerships built for hype cycles. They were long-term corporate relationships with brands that valued trust and consistency. He didn't turn himself into a walking billboard. He aligned with companies that matched his temperament. After football, instead of disappearing or chasing attention, Fitzgerald quietly stepped into rooms where real decisions happen. He became a minority owner of the Phoenix Suns. He joined boards. He invested through Larry Fitzgerald Enterprises, backing more than 160 startups across tech, wellness, hospitality, and real estate. This wasn't spray-and-pray investing either. These were calculated positions, often paired with advisory roles, influence, and long-term upside. Then there's real estate, and this is where his patience really paid off. Fitzgerald bought a Paradise Valley property for around $3 million, held it, improved it, and sold it years later for roughly $18 million. That's the kind of deal people write case studies about. Not because it was flashy, but because it worked. Day to day, Fitzgerald has always moved differently. His public appearances show the same clothes cycling back year after year. His social presence stays minimal. His interviews focus on teammates, community, and preparation. His foundation work consistently pulls more attention than anything he owns. Many players spend their careers proving they made it. But Larry Fitzgerald spent his building something that lasts long after the stadium lights shut off. And with that note, we conclude our journey through the 10 extremely rich black NFL players who live like they're poor. Which of these stories impressed you the most? Let us know in the comments. And for more such interesting peeks into black wealth, check out Black Status.